Hi, this is Klaus Frevert from Germany for IFL in association with MTK Global. I'm talking to Kalle Sauerland. Good evening. Good evening for you, I think, because...
Good evening, Klaus. I think you missed William Hill as well. That's the second sponsor from IFL.
I was just...
Coogan James, I'm looking after you tonight.
William Hill, thank you very much.
Checks in the post, I'll take it.
Tyron Zeuge just won a very impressive fight against Smith. How did you see the fight?
I thought, we saw tonight what Tyron Zeuge has, and that's an amazing boxing ability, amazing boxing skills. Still raw talent, and people said, why do you take the Smith fight? And I thought, listen, first of all, Paul is one thing, he's one tough bastard. But he came here tonight, he showed it, especially the 11th, 12th rounds, he made a bit of a grandstand finish out of it. I thought he performed. He came exactly the way I expected him to. He came forward, gave Tyron those chances to counter. Had his own moments. Paul definitely rocked him 2 times, and Tyron's the sort of guy I think you'll see him often get rocked and then rock the other guy back, sort of thing, backwards and forwards, and it was a real ding dong for a couple of rounds. So. It was nice. I mean, in the end, it was a very clear decision, a very deserved decision. And I think, Germany's not exactly having the most glorious of times in terms of world champions at the moment. So I think, it's a nice night for German boxing.
Of course. What will be the next plans for Zeuge? On the press conference, you didn't tell too much. Is there anything you can tell for Great Britain already?
Yeah, no, I mean, obviously there's a lot of talk at the moment with super middleweights, and obviously this week's announcement, George Groves, and there'll be a few more next week.
A few more next week.
Yeah, in terms of World Boxing Super Series, of course, Cruiserweights shaping up as well. All will be unveiled around beginning of July, so not long to wait now. We'll give you a few more names before the gala in Monte Carlo, and
how many boxers from Matchroom will be attending in the tournament? Probably.
From Matchroom? Oh,
yeah.
I don't know. I'm not sure. You have to ask Eddie that.
I tried to find out, but Eddie didn't tell anything, or not too much. He said about one in every division. He said maybe.
No, I mean. We spoke this week. I was in London this week having meetings. It's at the end of the day, just people understand. I'm working on behalf of the company of Boxing Super Series as a chief boxing officer. It's called. But I take care, mate. But it is recommendations that I make to the board, and the board ultimately decides. So it's. I'm more acting on behalf of them, so it's not this is Kalle chooses this guy and this guy goes in. It doesn't quite work like that, unfortunately. Or else you wouldn't have any match. You'd have 16 Sauerland fighters. But that's not going to be the case. That won't be the case. We have some good boxers at Team Sauerland, and I think they will be looked at and get in. And George Groves is obviously one of them this week. I think he is the man to beat in the division now. A lot of talk about, obviously, before that, about James DeGale, and obviously there's other names floating about. Callum Smith's a great name from the UK as well. Chris Eubank Jr.'s got a tough fight with Arthur Abraham, of course, now. But ultimately, it's really George Groves at the moment, isn't it? He went out and did such a job on Shudanov, stole the show in Sheffield. He's a guy who's he's already fought on the big stage. He's finally had his moment now. And he's the guy to beat in the division. So I thought it was very logical to put him in first. It's sort of like the main man goes in, and now it's the hunters leading the pack. And but there will be another belt going in there as well. So we'll get interesting. The tournament is
also interesting.
Interesting names as well.
Besides of the tournament, there is some interesting event coming up quite soon. Abraham is boxing against Chris Eubanks.
15th of July, Wembley Arena, on ITV box office.
What do you expect from that fight?
Fireworks. I expect Arthur saw him tonight. He is well up for this. This is his. He feels redemption night. He had a terrible night last year against Ramirez after a really good camp. Went out and just didn't turn up in Vegas, and yes, had a couple of good wins on the comeback, and a very good win against Krasniki early this year.
That was really impressive, yeah.
He fought really well that night, and you can feel that Arthur knows he's got to pull it. Sometimes Arthur can be guilty of coasting fights, lazing his way through fights and working 30 seconds, 40 seconds of a 3-minute round and still nicking the round, because he normally does a lot of work in those there, and he's impressive. He's a powerful guy, So, and I think Eubank he's gonna find out what it's like to be hit by a guy who
really hits,
and really hard, and that at 168, and. Chris Eubank is a very active fighter, which I think won't really suit Arthur. So it'd be quite interesting to see how Arthur counters that. People mustn't forget Arthur Abraham's got an amazing jab. If he starts pumping that jab, then it's going to be a tough night for Chris Eubank.
What would be your prediction for that fight? The outcome?
I think Arthur's going to wear him down and stop him. I think he'll stop him in the later rounds.
Okay. We will see. Does Arthur eventually also attend the tournament? Or does it depend how the fight goes off, or doesn't even he think about it?
At the moment, I'm not going to discuss any things, Klaus. We'll talk when we're in Monaco and we have the names up there. And
okay. Yeah, I just tried to find out something. It's my job, you know that.
Absolutely. Ask me the questions you like, and I'll give you the answers I can.
Okay. So, anything you want to add from your side, or are we just waiting until the next event where we can talk again?
Excited for German boxing. So it was a good win.
It was
and I think Tyron Zeuge is very much still learning.
But he's
improving fight by fight.
Fight by fight, improving with the word. Sorry, my English.
You see the talent there. Yeah, he's got his moments where he gets caught, and he's got to watch that, because he was up 11 rounds going into 12 or 10 rounds at least. Mm-hmm. So you don't really go in then and start to trade, but he made it fun. He made it exciting. He got my heart going.
Absolutely.
And before that was a grandstand. It was a grandstand performance against a real warrior. Paul Smith. People say what they want about Paul Smith. I know
of course,
there's critics before the fight, but Paul Smith.
I expect a little more from Paul tonight.
Who, first of all, knows his boxing very well, and he was a tough challenge for him.
But he handled him perfectly, because
he handled him very well.
That's what I expected more from Paul, but he couldn't do much more because Zeuge didn't let it happen. That was my impression. Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much for the interview.
Thank you very much.
Nice seeing you again, and have a good.
We're doing a live film London interview without Coogan or James, but it's good to see a German version of Coogan and James now in it as well.
Yeah, maybe that can continue anyway.
Bigger. The story
it just gets bigger.
bigger.
Thank you, Kalle. Have a good night. Bye bye.